excited to meet you.
Let us know how Lumen Industries can help you. Lumen is listening.
Humans have always had the natural instinct to congregate. Sure, what could have started out as a basic need to survive, a larger group did provide better chances against the threats and ailments that you could have faced out there. But a part of that was also gathering around and sharing your experience, bestowing wisdom, helping better understand each person's role amongst the community you were building, and last but not least, build camaraderie amongst your fellow person. Eventually telling these stories of one's experience would become more exaggerative, and that exaggeration eventually evolved into the storytelling we have today, which is mass-produced and an economic foundation amongst most societies.
I read everything I could in the school library. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Jim Lovell. Do you know who my favorite is?
Sally Ride.
Sally Ride. Best astronaut name ever.
Storytelling is a vital piece of our culture as human beings because every single one of us is capable of bringing a unique and alternative perspective to whatever story we're trying to bring. Just like with most things, humanity's determination to take something and make it better persists in storytelling. We learn from the stories that came before, we find out what works, we figure out what doesn't, and we incorporate our own creative process to whatever project we decide to put out, ensuring that storytelling as a whole only gets better as time goes on. Or at least, that's how it should be. See, with the evolution of storytelling, we have found so many ways to make a story more engaging. How is it that we are still getting series that are somehow an antithesis to the very magic that brought humans together to tell their stories in the first place. In the end, however they come to be, doesn't really matter, because finding the balance of a good quality story can be really hard to get, because not only do you have consumers who are very vocal and very picky, but you also have administration, which are very numbers-based and very attached from the storytelling they seem to be so involved in general. And the worst combination of these two problems has led to many great, inspirational, creative stories being left on the cutting room floor. If we want to keep shows like these from being canceled and prevent shows like that from becoming the new norm, the only way to keep things like this from happening again is to show some appreciation for genuinely well-crafted, passion-filled, creative projects. I got a project for you you can go ahead and start with if you haven't seen it. But if you read the title, you already know what I'm talking about, and that is Severance. To paint you a picture, if a show like Meet the Kardashians is the McDonald's of the entertainment industry, then a show like Severance is a sweet piece of Almas caviar. Piece, whole, I don't know, however it's presented, you could eat it out of your hands. Point is, Severance caliber is up there and not worth batting an eye to. I'm hoping I can bring some points to the table today that can both convince your average casual viewer and the more analytical viewers to be able to give the show Severance a shot if you haven't already. I remember around 2 to 3 years ago, I was watching a show called The Foundation, which was on Apple TV+. Genuinely good show, probably make a video on it one day. Point is, while watching this show, there was an ad for a new series called Severance. I was immediately intrigued because not only was it being produced by Ben Stiller, who I did not expect to be involved in the TV genre whatsoever in such a weird, quirky looking show, but it also had one of the main leading roles be casted as Adam Scott. Now, if you've ever seen Parks and Rec, then you'd know that the character Adam Scott plays is a character named Ben. He's just one-of-the-mill, average city employee who's a little awkward, a little dorky. A lot of people roast him because he's also a little nerdy. Point is, his character is very relatable. Now, I want to walk you through a thought experiment. Close your eyes. Give me your wallet. No, close your eyes. And imagine you're watching Parks and Rec. Every time Ben is on screen, he's acting exactly how you would expect him to act. Now, theoretically, what if every time he left the Parks and Rec office and showed up at home, he was going through it? He was dealing with things like depression, falling through the cracks, maybe even grieving over something lost, and his character was a whole different version of the version we saw within Parks and Rec altogether. The differences between how he acts at home and how he'd act at work are so different that it almost becomes jarring. How is he so depressed and lonely the minute he gets home, but then the minute he enters work, chipper, happy, and back to his dorky self? Sure, you could argue it's pretty representative of real life. You take the mask off, you head home, and maybe you're just a little more comfortable. Or maybe the mask you have while working with others is the real mask, and being home reminds you of something else. Point is, it begs the question, which version of you is your truest self? Is it the one that spends 8 hours a day working and being productive? Or is it the one over and burnt out from everything they're dealing with and ready to just kind of relax? This core concept is the foundation of the show Severance. See, without spoiling too much, the very premise of the show is you go to work, you enter the building, but in your mind's eye, the minute you walk in, you're walking right back out. 8 hours of work, done. You're getting paid for it, and you just get to go straight home. But the version of you that goes to work has no idea who you are, has no idea what the world outside this building is even like. Essentially leaving you living as two different versions of one person. Now, while that concept alone can be pretty intriguing, it gets more intriguing the more and more you think about it. There's a huge line of problems that occur if a procedure like this had actually existed. Who's to say avoiding whatever's stressing you out and committing to mundane day-to-day tasks won't fill you with enough sense of achievement that you can at least grow or move on in some way, shape, or form? And who's to say what the version of yourself working 8 hours every single day without any break is actually having to deal with? See, that's where the show's premise really starts to keep going. What do you do if you walk out of work one day seemingly 5 seconds after you walked in, only this time you have a bump on your head. Where did it come from? Who do you ask to find out where it came from? And how can you fully trust that this bump on your head happened the way you were told? What do you do when you come into work and for some reason every morning when you start your shift, your face is a little red, a little puffy, or even just a little angry or tired? What do you do if the outside version of yourself, Audi, persists on working within this company, but the inside version of yourself, in Innie, refuses to do so? Reasonably so. See, this then evolves the problem into a bigger moral conundrum. If you guys are at conflict with each other and cannot find a way to agree, very end of the line, who is going to be piloting this ship? How do you decide that? Who deserves control? And who essentially deserves to be left in a void of non-existence, completely forgotten about because seemingly everybody else who sees you will just see that version of you. Now, for some reason, those situations, how characters would respond to those situations, and the existential threat of it all doesn't intrigue you, the show doesn't stop there. The mysteries keep piling on outside of this one little premise, which is strange to call it little because I'd argue it's anything but. If you're an inquisitive type and you like lore, you like mystery, you like characters whose motivations aren't exactly clear, you like not being fed the answers but trying to solve the answers as much as possible without being able to guess, then maybe I should tell you just a little bit about the corporation that would be willing to enact such a procedure in the first place. Again, no major spoilers, but I will touch on some story aspects that we see within the story. I don't think this would be considered too big of a spoiler, but please, if you want to go in completely blind, I highly recommend doing so. This is just for those that maybe need a little more reason to step into the show. Let's start off with one of the most immediate mysteries you're going to run into while watching the series, and that is, why is everything so weird? I mean it. You'll step into this show, and even from the very opening scene, the entire vibe feels off, feels weird. If you've ever seen videos of a thing called the back rooms or know what the term liminal spaces means, it's like a combination of that mixed with an uncanny valley vibe with how the characters all respond and act with each other. I guess to put a better example is, I will show you one scene from the very first episode of the series. Again, there's not a lot of context in this scene. It's not a huge spoiler for any of the arcs that happen within the show. However, it does capture the oddness of the series as a whole. So if you're interested in the vibe, check it out.
Oh, a handshake is available upon request.
Thank you. May I have a handshake?
Now, this sort of oddness can be really deterring for the casual viewer. We're so used to projects that come out nowadays that are very artsy, very odd, have a weird flavor to them seemingly just for the sake of being weird or different. Sometimes, if not most times, these elements don't actually lead anywhere. It's just a piece of the artist's personal creativity they add as a sort of icing over whatever project they're actually working on. With this series, all of the oddness and weirdness and everything you're seeing, it's all placed for a very specific reason. Even if it seems totally random, there's a reason it's there and probably pay off later down the line. Not many stories you can say that's the case, but with Severance, the oddness, while a little bit deterring, is worth pushing through. And it does become a flavor that's easier to sit with, and you realize no other show will ever bring it. Another weird aspect of the show is the seemingly almost religious nature that comes with the company that runs this whole severing project. Without going into details, the company's goals seem less financially oriented and more occult-like oriented. Their grand plan, while still a mystery to anyone who's currently caught up with the series, is scarily eerie. Even though there's been no significantly eerie scenes, or gory scenes for that matter, every time the company is on screen and a layer of their mystery is peeled back, you start to see how colorful this little orange is. And the strangest part is more people are just concerned with what the company's doing as a whole and not why. I'm sure eventually we'll get to that point, but for now, the company has this overwhelming presence over the audience and its characters that you just can't quite put down. See, most of the people that work within this company seem to do it as a sense of worship. But this sort of devotion adds a level of mystery to the show that I've only seen in another show called Yellow Jackets, where you can't tell if the show is based in maybe sci-fi / semi-reality, or if it's in more of a spiritual, mystical type realm of storytelling. With Yellow Jackets, that's one of its primary focuses. With this show, that's just an aspect you get to think on as an audience member, because the show is already presenting so many intriguing mysteries to you. It just becomes a flavor, one worth investing in. These unanswered questions, along with how seamlessly they're placed throughout the story and how cohesive they are for the grand story as a whole, has made Severance the best example of a mystery box show. And a mystery box show only holds its weight when it knows where its ending is and knows just how to feed the right amount of questions to its audience so they can keep following along until the very end where we all figure it out together. A bad example of this is Lost, where the mysteries were kind of added simply because they needed to keep viewers watching. But not only does this show keep its mysteries, but it keeps its audience guessing. Look up any Severance theory you'll find online, and you can gauge this by seeing how much thought and effort is put into each theory. Some of the people who throw out these theories are insanely smart, insanely talented, insanely handsome.
What is that?
That's how you know the show's mysteries are worth investing in. When really, really intelligent people are still unable to crack the code, because the mysteries are just so well implemented. Now again, the grand story as a whole is not over yet, so I could be wrong about many of these things. Maybe the show doesn't know where it's going. Maybe it's a stroke of luck that they wrote in the mysteries when they did and it just happened to work out. Someone could argue that, sure. I want to convince you to at least watch the first episode. And if you can get through the first episode and say that you absolutely hated it, drop the series. But any part of you is intrigued, keep watching. It gets better and better and builds up to the point where you hit a tension-filled, edge-of-your-seat finale that I've never seen another season of any show build up to so well. I remember the final 15 minutes of the season finale being the most intense moments ever. When I rewatched it, I realized, oh, this wasn't the final 15 minutes, this was the full final episode. It was the episode beforehand that built up this tension, that blended it together in my mind. And I'm no professional storyteller or anything, maybe I'm easy to please, but I have to tell you this. I am not sponsored, no one has given me anything, I haven't even gotten a blue balloon with my face on it, pretty upset about that. Do yourself a favor, watch the first episode and give it a shot. And if you still aren't interested after that, please come back and tell me what parts of the story deter you from wanting to watch or continue. The fact you stuck around this long actually means a lot. I'm a relatively new person to YouTube. I do, on this channel, edits, breakdowns, reactions, anything really TV or movie related. That's what I'm keeping this channel for. On my gaming channel, I just play any game I kind of feel like playing. I'm really bad at reacting to horror. I jump scare very easy. I do live stream for both from time to time, but I'm also open to suggestions for all sorts of content ideas or whatever people may think of. I also like to provide shoutouts at the end of my videos, just so I can share the creativity. Again, I'm someone who is a big believer in storytelling and creativity as a whole, so you'll find in a lot of these videos I'm shouting out someone or some project they're working on. If you have anything you're working on, feel free to leave it in the comments and I'd be happy to share it if I find it interesting. The shoutouts can be from big creators or small, doesn't really matter. I could shout out someone like Nautilus Files, and sure, maybe every single person that watches this video already knows about him, well and true. But if you haven't seen him, check him out. Talented YouTuber. There's a lot of good analytical breakdowns of series, especially series like Severance. For some reason you haven't seen him, but you have seen Severance, seriously, check him out. Otherwise, thank you for watching if you made it this far. I really appreciate it. I want to leave this off with another piece of advice. Love every version of yourself. The cringy parts, the parts you hate. It's good to pat yourself on the back once in a while and do some acknowledgement of your journey and how you got here. Anyways, thank you again for watching. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Check out Severance if you get the chance. Have a good one.